Hello everybody, welcome back to Space Pickle Designs. Today I have a very special tutorial for you. I'm going to make some wire wrapped beaded tassels here, and I have 3 examples for you on what you can do. You can use any type of beads, any thickness of wire. You can play around with it and have fun. But I would like to dedicate this video to my Aunt Jody. She is one of the first people that I ever saw create jewelry, and she's a very creative soul in her own right. So hi, Aunt Jody. But anyway, if you'd like to see how I made this cute, chunky little beaded tassel, then just keep on watching. So the materials you're going to need for this particular tassel are going to be some seed beads, or whatever beads, small beads that you want to use for your tassel. You can use all one, you can use a combination of both. For this one, I'm going to use some twisted silver lined white bugle bead and a periwinkle 8/0 bead right there. I'm going to be using medium S-line, and you can use any type of nylon cording that you'd like that will fit through your beads. So this is the medium 0.3 millimeters, and this is what I'm going to use. I picked this because it's locally available at a lot of different bead stores. You're going to need some scissors, a variety of pliers here. This is just to manipulate your wire. I have a lighter here. You can use a Bead Buddy burner, and you can also use hypo cement or another type of glue. The thing that will differ is that if you don't have a lighter, you can use this Bead Buddy thread burner, but it takes forever, like an insane amount of time just to do the technique that you're gonna need to do, but I will show you how to do it. You can also use hypo cement, and what you will do is tie a knot at the end of each little tassel string, and you will tie a knot, put some hypo cement, let it dry, and then cut the end. For the third one, this is the one that I recommend for me just because it's very quick, is just the regular old lighter. So if you're a child or a younger person, please ask your parent if you can use the lighter version before you attempt this. For my wire, I am just going to use 20 gauge artistic wire in this tarnish resistant brass color. The first step we're going to do is make the basis for our tassel. I have a piece of about 1.5 feet of 20 gauge wire off to the side that I've already cut, and I have my S-line nylon beading thread here. I'm just going to unwrap this. It comes in many different colors, so that's a design choice for you. Make sure you get the color that you'd like, but I'm just going to use plain old white. And what I'm going to do here, I'm just going to take the edge, and you can be more calculated or precise about this if you'd like, but this is just how I'm going to do it. I'm going to hold the end between my thumb and first finger, and I'm just going to, let's get this started here. I'm just going to wrap this around my hand like 15 to 20 times. So I've wrapped this around my hands about 20 times, and don't worry if you wrap it too much. There are ways to hide the strings or remove the strings later on, so you'll be fine. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to cut the edge off. Make sure to cut the thread off where you started it, so you're not just having a random thread out there. So I have my bundle of threads here, and the ends are on the same side. So the opposite side of the ends is where we're going to start with our wire wrapping, and we're just going to feed the wire through. And this is kind of like a briolet if you think about it, but we're going to pinch the 2 pieces of thread here, and this is about a 2-inch length at the end. And I'm just going to start folding it over, and that's just to make sure that our thread is getting secure. So the long piece is going to be I'll move this around. So here's our thread bundle. Our ends are at the bottom here, and we have fed our wire through, so you can see. So I want the longest part of my wire to be the one that goes vertical, and I'm going to take the shorter piece of wire and make that 90 degrees. So then I'm going to take my bail making pliers. I'm just going to make a loop, and this is going to be whatever loop size that you'd like to use. I'm going to make a decent size, but not too large. And I am going to do 2 wraps with this longer piece of wire. I promise you, after you get these threads secure, it's not going to be hard. What I'm going to do is go ahead and just make 2 wraps. It does not have to be neat at this point because this will all be covered up. Okay, so I've made 2 wraps there, and then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna hold this top part again, but I'm also gonna take this smaller piece and start doing wraps on that piece. So I can hold it from the bottom loop here. Make sure we're all together. We're just gonna do 2 wraps. And I'm gonna cut this short piece. So really you would only need about 1 inch, but for leverage sake, I cut a little bit more. So you don't really even need to tuck this in because it's all gonna be covered later, but we're a little bit secure here. So what we're gonna do is just get this wrap going, and I'm just gonna use the rest of the thread to wrap, or the rest of the wire to wrap around the top portion of the tassel. This is craft wire, so it's super soft, and you don't need to come down very far. You just get the tassel started. I just want to make sure that the threads are not going to be moving around while I am using them. So you can go up and down a few times. Just make sure you use all of your wire, because that will serve as the basis of your cone that you're going to finish later. So this doesn't have to look any sort of way, we're just building thickness. So we're getting to the end. And with this artistic wire, soft flicks, you don't really have to do this, but I feel like you have to kind of manipulate artistic wire just a little bit more. It seems to want to like twist out on you. So just make sure if you're using artistic wire just to put some pressure on it and clamp it down just a little bit so it doesn't move on you. I'm going to take nylon jaw, and again, you don't really need to even do this, but I'm just going to take this and make sure that we're secure here. The ends, whatever, if it's a little scratchy, that's totally fine. We're going to be covering this up a lot later. So I'm going to take my scissors, and at the end you'll have all these loops, and you're just going to start cutting the edges of the loops. And just make sure you've cut all your threads. And I believe that I have. At this point, you can kind of groom your tassel. Honestly, your tassels are gonna be all different lengths anyway, so I wouldn't, you know, don't fret. It's gonna look good at the end, regardless of if there's, you know, 1/8 of an inch longer tassel. It actually would probably look better. But if you're that type of person, then go ahead and feel free. Whatever makes you happy. So this is what we have so far. Next up is the fun part. This is the bulk of your work. So what we're gonna do is you're going to pick, now this is this is where thread selection comes into play. You're going to pick a thread that is more on the outside of your tassel, just in case you run out of beads or you feel like your tassel's too full. If you're working from the outside in, then you can just kind of cut off the ones that are in the middle and hide them in your tassel. It's not going to be as easy as if you know, cut one on the outside, but that's just a preference. So all I'm going to do is start stringing up my beads here, and I'm just going to do an alternating 8/0 and bugle bead. So I've ended my pattern here, and make sure you have some room to work with, because the whole basis of this tassel is that we are going to use the end and melt the end of the string to create a bead to where your last bead cannot fall off. It may not be the most secure, but it's the easiest, quickest way to do it. You can, if you wanted something that you knew was going to be super secure, make sure to cut your lengths of thread way longer. I would say 2 inches longer than you'd want them, so that you can tie a knot and use the GS hypo cement on the knot. That will be the most secure way. So, because I get manicures and I don't really want to ruin my nail polish, what I do is I will hold the end of the tassel with a pair of pliers. So say a pair of old pliers you really don't care about, even though it's just nylon, so like plastic and a lighter, it's not going to do much to the pliers. I've already used these pliers for 2 other tassels and you can barely even tell. So my preferred method is to take a lighter, like a hand lighter like this. I'm just going to start burning the edges slowly and patting them on the side where the metal is to flatten the edge against the pliers. So this will make a flat portion to where if you pull, that flattened plastic portion from the thread is not going to go through your 8/0. So this is what that first one looks like. And yes, it's good that you have a gap at the top here, because our bead cone made from our wire is going to come down probably about another 1/2 inch. So actually having this leeway up top helps you save on beads, and it actually helps it lay more correctly. So again, I am going to thread up another thread on the outside here. And as a design tip, if you end with an 8/0, say you're switching beads around, you end with an 8/0, I would always end with an 8/0. It just gives it a little bit more of a finished look. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna thread up another one. So I've gotten to the length that I want on my second string here. I'm gonna come about a 1/4 inch, like a 1/4 of an inch down. I'm gonna take my lighter. Going to start forming that bead of plastic on the end of the S line here. Make sure to flatten it out. I have just a little bit of a tail there. I'm gonna cut off, but we have a nice flat portion. You bring your beads down and it stays. We'll do one more and I'll show you how to use the thread burner. Let me go ahead and thread one of these up. So I have my 3rd string strung up here, got my pattern the way I want it. I'm gonna take the bead burner. This is what I used at first and I just absolutely hated it because it takes so long and it stinks a lot more in my opinion. But basically you're just melting this thread down to a flat bead down at the bottom of your pliers here. And I think it takes a lot more skill because the thread actually wants to come off on the thread burner itself, so it's a lot harder to form that flat, and it takes 4 or 5 times as long. So I'm just trying to make this flat portion here. As you can see, it's just a mess, but you make your flat little portion there, and there it goes, and it should hold as long as you're not too rough with it. I mean, let's just, for experiment's sake, try to pull. Yeah, I'm pulling pretty decent on there, and it's staying. So it is melted plastic. So this is where you choose your preferred method, whether it be the GS Hypo Cement, the bead burner, or I mean the thread burner, or the I keep calling it bead burner. I'm like insane. Or the lighter, and you turn on a podcast and you just go about your merry way doing the beading. Once you get all your threads beaded up and the way that you like them, just come on back and we will finish the top of the tassel. All right, I've completed the beading portion of this tassel. It's a nice full tassel. This is how many beads I had left. I used most of the bugle beads and about half of the seed beads. So 1 tube should be about good for you if you want a tassel like this, and this is probably a 3.5 inch tassel. So nice big statement piece. So in order to finish this off, I want to make sure that this top portion looks more like a cone, like a bead cap. So I have probably 5 or 6 feet of 20 gauge wire, the same wire that we used at the top here. So you can use whatever gauge that you want. This is just what I'm using. So there's so many endless possibilities that you can use, even with like different seed bead designs. Like, you can do whatever you want. This is just a base technique. So what I want to do is, in order to get some leverage, I'm gonna have to go in about 1 to 2 inches and just start wrapping that around. This again is just to get some leverage. Don't worry about what this looks like as of right now. So I'm just wrapping that shorter piece around and cut it off right here. Don't have to worry about tucking it. And here's the fun part. So we're just gonna start wrapping. This wire is soft, but it is not as soft as Soft Flex. This is artistic wire. So you're just gonna have to work with it, depending on what wire that you have. If you have hand issues, feel free to use some pliers. I do have carpal tunnel, but normally I'm pretty good with just using this by hand. So you can actually work off the spool, which is what I normally do, but for filming's sake, I cut a piece of like 5 to 6 feet. So we're wrapping this around. I'm just spinning this so that the wires wrap. And you're going to want, once you get down to about this area, you're going to want to wrap a little more loosely, because you want it to contain some of your seed beads. And this is going to help give it a cone-like shape without flaring out your tassel strings. So we're just getting a skeleton down. And you definitely have to do this first. So we're making a little skirt here. And you come down as far as you want. I'm just gonna come down until none of my bare thread is showing. And then I'm gonna start working back up. So this is how far I've gone down. Probably about 1/4 inch. I'm just gonna start wrapping back up. And again, like I said, you have 5 or 6 feet here. Craft wire is pretty affordable, so don't worry about it. You'll love this piece in the end. You can just start twirling, wrapping and wrapping and wrapping and wrapping. And in order to get that graduated effect, see we're still kind of lumpy here, you just fill in the wire where it's missing. Super easy, it's not precise whatsoever. I'm gonna start going up a little bit. And this is the area where I want to put a lot more wire. I'm still wrapping and wrapping. We're gaining some thickness in here. Like I said, you can definitely work off the spool, so when you're done you can just cut it off and you have no waste. It's important to go up and down the bead cap portion or the cone portion. Not only does it give it thickness, but it gives it some structure. So if you're weaving back and forth, you're not just having a spiral that can kind of flip out of control on you. So the weaving back and forth, although it looks tedious, is definitely necessary. And if you've seen my videos, you know I usually work off the spool and that I don't like a lot of waste when it comes to wire. But this is definitely one of those pieces where you don't want to skimp on the wire, because it's just going to look a little anemic, so to speak. You want to look at your cone from different angles. So I think we're about good. I think I'm gonna cut this piece off. I can definitely save this for later. And I like to cut it around the middle portion so that I can tuck it in. I just take a pair of pliers. I'm gonna take my nylon pliers and kind of crunch it in there and just fool around with it a little bit with the hands. All your twisting should have made a pretty good little spiral here. It should be pretty sturdy. I'm gonna adjust this loop just a little bit. And here is our tassel. Look at that guy. Isn't she cute? So I'm loving the mixed metal look on this one. I'm definitely gonna bring some silver components into the piece that I added to. But yeah, let's go take a look at the previous tassels that we've done, and we'll just wrap this video right on up. Here are 3 of the tassels that I've made. This is the first one here with the gold, just straight up bugle beads on this one here. I used black and silver with this one, and these are just regular bugle beads, not twisted. And then this is what we made today, and this one's a cute little chunky boy. I love him. His bead cap is a little bit bigger than the others, but it's up to you what style that you want to make. So I'm excited to see all your projects making tassels like these, and I hope to see them. So tag me, please. Let me know if you're willing to try this one out, and I hope that you will. I hope everyone is staying safe and well out there. See ya.